She read the menu like it had just told her something she wasn't ready to hear. Not browsed, not skimmed. Read it twice, top to bottom, with her lips pressed together and her thumbnail digging into the edge of the laminate. Then she set it down, picked up her water glass, put it back without drinking, and looked at me across a table with a candle between us that cost more than my parking. "I have to be honest with you," she said. "This place is way out of my budget." The jazz trio near the window kept playing. Our server was hovering somewhere behind me with the specific patience of a man who had trained himself not to react to awkward pauses. The couple at the next table were pretending to study their bread. And I remember thinking, whatever I say in the next 5 seconds is going to decide what this night becomes. My name is Joel. I'm 31 years old, and I work as an estimator for a mid-sized general contractor in Vancouver, which means I spend most of my days calculating the cost of things. Lumber, labor, permits, contingency budgets, for when things go sideways, which they always do. I know what things cost. I know how much a number can shift the energy in a room, how fast someone's face changes when a bill arrives, and the math doesn't work. So I knew exactly what was happening across that table. Her name was Nina. My coworker and closest friend Owen had set us up with the kind of conviction only someone who genuinely likes both people can manage. He'd cornered me at a Friday afternoon coffee run and said, "I know someone you need to meet. She's funny, she doesn't take herself too seriously, and she will absolutely call you out when you're being dense." "Those are not universally considered selling points," I told him. "They're for you," he said. Nina worked as a settlement support worker for a nonprofit in East Vancouver that helped newcomers navigate housing, school registration, the bureaucratic maze of becoming Canadian. Owen had met her at a community fundraiser. He described her as someone who looked like she'd heard every line in the book and was mildly curious whether you had anything original. That description stayed with me. She walked into the restaurant wearing a burgundy blouse, dark jeans, and silver earrings shaped like small crescents. She had quick eyes, warm brown, and the kind of smile she gave the hostess, genuine with eye contact, like she actually saw the person, that told me more about her than any profile Owen had shown me. When she sat down and tucked her hands under her thighs briefly, like she was bracing, I noticed. "You must be Joel," she said. "Still getting used to it," I said. Her smile tilted. "Owen said you were dry. My entire personality is 40% humidity." That got a real laugh from her. Small, sharp, surprised. The kind that comes out before a person decides whether to let it. For the first 15 minutes, everything was easy. She told me about a kid she'd helped enroll in school that week, a 7-year-old from Eritrea who had walked in holding his mother's hand and walked out holding a school supply list. I told her about a project I was estimating, a community center retrofit in Burnaby where the architect kept changing the curtain wall specs and nobody told accounting. "Is that the most frustrating part of your job?" she asked. "The changes? No," I said. "The most frustrating part is when people are surprised by the costs of their own decisions." Her eyes held mine a half-second past casual. "That sounds like you could be describing several things at once." "I'm layered," I said. "Like drywall," she said. "Exactly. And just as difficult to repair once damaged." She laughed again, and this time she let it land properly. Then the server appeared and I opened my menu, and the number I saw next to the sablefish stopped me mid-breath. $46 for one plate. A side of roasted vegetables was listed separately at $18. I looked at Nina. She had gone very still. Her fingers rested lightly on the menu's edge, and she wasn't turning pages anymore. She was doing the math the same way I was. The server smiled with professional warmth. "Can I tell you about our tasting menu? It's a 5-course experience, very popular for special evenings." Nina's cheeks went a shade darker. Not embarrassed exactly, more like bracing. I closed my menu. The server looked at me. Nina looked at me too, but differently. Carefully. Like she was waiting for the part where I made it worse. "Can I ask?" I said to the server. "Is there a version of this restaurant 3 blocks away that has the same tablecloths but half the prices?" The server blinked. "I'm sorry. We may have accidentally overcommitted to an atmosphere," I said. "No offense to the atmosphere. It's excellent. Very committed to itself." Nina made a sound that was half relief and half actual laughter. She covered it with her napkin but not fast enough. "Do you like pho?" I asked her. She lowered the napkin. "What?" "Hot soup, rice noodles, broth that's been going since approximately the Meiji era." There's a place on Kingsway that I would honestly eat at every day if I had no other obligations. She stared at me. You want to leave? I want to eat food that costs less than my hourly rate. I'm also hungry. These two desires have converged. We haven't ordered, the server said. I know, I said. That's why leaving is still an option. Nina looked at me for a long moment. The table candle flickered between us. She was searching my face for the angle, I could tell. The part where this was a performance, where the humble exit was actually just a different kind of showing off. Joel, she said quietly, you don't have to do this. I'm also not doing it for you, I said. I can't justify $46 for one piece of fish while also claiming to be a reasonable person. That got her. A real laugh uncovered, and she pressed her palm flat against the tablecloth, like she needed to ground herself. I left $30 on the table for the bread we'd touched once in the water, because my dad raised me to tip generously on the way out the same as the way in. Then I stood and offered Nina my hand. Not a rescue. An invitation. She looked at my hand, then at me. Her expression did something complicated. Suspicion folding into something that looked like relief, trying not to embarrass itself. Then she placed her hand in mine. Her fingers were warm. I felt that all the way up my arm and made a note to behave like an adult about it. We walked out past the host stand and into the cool October air of downtown Vancouver, the mountains invisible in the dark, but present the way they always are, like a fact you don't have to look at to know. In the elevator on the way down to the parking level, Nina stood with her arms crossed and her mouth fighting itself. What? I said. Nothing. That is extremely not nothing. I'm just deciding, she said, whether this is the most charming eggs I've ever made from a restaurant or a genuine red flag. Those aren't mutually exclusive. No, she said, they're really not. The elevator opened. We walked out. First date? I asked. She glanced sideways. What? Is this the first date you've left early? Define early. Before eating. She thought about it. It's top 3. That's almost impressive. I contain multitudes, she said, and something about the way she said it, light, a little self-deprecating, made me want to know all of them. On Kingsway, we sat across from each other in a booth with plastic menus and tea that arrived in a metal pot before we asked. Nina ordered brisket pho with extra hoisin. I got the combination. She insisted on paying for her own. I've got it, I said. I know, she said. That's not the point. I looked at her. The point, she said, not unkindly, is that I just let a man walk me out of a restaurant because I said something true about my finances, and I'd like to not spend the rest of the night feeling like I owe you the narrative. I sat with that for a second. Fair, I said. Yeah? Yeah. No argument. She studied me. You're not going to explain why paying would be fine, actually? No. Or tell me it's not a big deal? Also no. She picked up her chopsticks. Owen did not warn me about you. Owen tells everyone the version that gets them in the room, I said. The actual person shows up later. She smiled at that, real and quiet. The actual person left a nice restaurant to eat soup on Kingsway. The soup is better, I said. It is, she said. Condensation ran down my tea glass. Traffic moved outside the window, slow and ordinary. Our bowls arrived, and she reached for the sriracha before I did and added twice as much as I would have, and then held it out to me without asking if I wanted it, which I did. Can I tell you something? She said, after a few minutes of comfortable silence. Only if I can tell you something after. Deal. She wound noodles around her chopsticks. When I said it at the restaurant, I expected you to look disappointed. I frowned. Why? She didn't answer immediately. Set her chopsticks down, looked at the table. The last person I dated, seriously, I mean, for almost 2 years, had this thing where he said he was fine with me not making much money. He called himself low maintenance about it. She paused. But every time I couldn't do something expensive, or every time I asked to split instead of treating, or every time I chose the cheaper option, he'd get this look. Just for a second. Like he was recalculating. The restaurant hummed around us. I felt something tighten in my chest, old and familiar. By the end, she said, I'd stopped saying what things cost me. I just said I wasn't interested, or I was busy. It was easier. I kept my voice steady. For the record, you didn't look like a problem back there. She looked up. You looked honest, I said. That's different. Her eyes held mine. Something shifted in them, opened a little. Your turn, she said after a moment. You promised. I wrapped both hands around my tea glass. When I was 24, I was on a renovation site in Coquitlam, and I made a pretty significant measurement error. Not catastrophic, but enough that we had to reframe a section. My foreman at the time, good guy, mostly, told the project owner about it in a way that made it sound like I was a liability. She waited. But he told the story to everyone on site differently, like it was funny, like I was the cautionary tale of the week. I looked at the table. I didn't quit. I just noticed that the same story could be told with you in it or over you, and that the person doing the telling gets to choose. Nina was quiet for a moment. Did you ever say anything to him? Eventually. He respected it more than I expected. She nodded slowly. I think I've been waiting for people to respect it. The truth? The asking. We were quiet. Outside, a bus went by and the whole window shook slightly. She picked up her chopsticks again, and we ate, and it didn't feel like a first date anymore. It felt like running into someone in a hallway you'd both been in for years without knowing it. Then her phone lit up on the table. She glanced at it, and the warmth in her face drained out so fast I caught it before she could stop me from catching it. A name on the screen, Derek, the message preview. You're downtown with someone? Does he know about the lease? Nina picked the phone up and turned it over without reading the rest. For a second, the soup restaurant felt very loud. She looked at me like someone who had just heard a door slam from across the building and was hoping I hadn't. I'm sorry, she said. That was rude. The phone? The everything. Her smile was the performed kind, the one you put on when the real one needs a minute. I should probably get going. There it was. I could have let her go. A reasonable person probably would have said, no worries, it was great. Let's do this again sometime, and let her leave with half a bowl of pho and whatever Derek had just dropped on her. But she'd been honest with me twice tonight in the span of an hour, and that was more than most people managed in several months, and I didn't want the evening to end with her alone on a SkyTrain replaying something she hadn't chosen. Nina, I said. She paused with her jacket halfway off the back of the chair. You don't owe me an explanation. Her expression shifted. But if you leave because someone sent a message designed to rattle you, I said, then he gets to write the ending tonight. Not you. She looked down. You could also just stay and finish your soup, I said. That's also an option. The pho steamed between us. She sat back slowly, like she was making the decision one vertebra at a time. Derek is my ex, she said. I figured. He and I ended 8 months ago. She straightened a chopstick that didn't need straightening. He's been present. Since then, messages? Mostly. Sometimes he shows up at things. We have mutual friends, which makes it complicated. She paused. He has a way of turning up at the edge of things and making sure I know he's there. I kept my face steady. What's the lease? She looked at me, checking something. Whatever she found, she decided it was okay. When we were together, my building went condo. I needed to move. He co-signed on a new place for 3 months while I sorted out my finances. My mom had been sick. I'd taken time off work. Things had slipped. She wrapped her hands around her tea. We broke up 2 months after I got back on my feet. He's been mentioning the cosign ever since. Not constantly. Just enough. Just enough. I knew exactly what that meant. Enough to feel present without being actionable. Enough to keep a hand on the exit. He heard I was downtown, she said. He knows because his friend lives in my building and sees me leave. I said nothing. The wrong words were pushing at the front of my mouth and I let them stay there. She looked at me with her chin up the way you hold your chin when you've told a true thing and you're waiting to see what it costs you. That's the whole boring story, she said. I'm not hiding anything dramatic. I just owe a debt of gratitude to a man who decided gratitude came with conditions. Thank you for telling me, I said. She narrowed her eyes slightly. That's all? That's all. No advice? Not unless you want it. No immediate problem solving? I'm off the clock, I said. Something in her shoulders released. Not all the way, but some. I turned my tea glass in my hands. For what it's worth, and I know it's early to say this, needing help doesn't tell me anything negative about you. It tells me you had a hard year and you made it through. She looked at the table. It doesn't always feel like that. No, it usually feels like evidence. She glanced up. You sound like you know. I looked out the window at the wet pavement on Kingsway, the smear of streetlights. My parents split when I was 12, I said. My mom worked 2 jobs for a while. There was a stretch in my early 20s where I was sending her money every month because her hours got cut and she wouldn't say so directly. She'd just stop mentioning things. New shoes, dentist appointments. I paused. I learned early that people who are careful with money aren't careless with other things. Usually the opposite. Nina had gone quiet in a different way. Not polite quiet, listening quiet. My dad did the same thing, she said softly. He'd joke at the grocery store checkout. Like if he made it funny enough, we wouldn't notice he was counting. The foe had gone lukewarm. Neither of us touched it. My mom used to do the bills at the kitchen table, I said. On paper with a calculator. And if I came downstairs, she'd turn them face down, like she was protecting me from the numbers. Nina pressed her lips together. My dad had a coupon organizer, she said. One of those accordion folders. He color-coded it. Her voice caught slightly. He called it his investment portfolio. We sat there in that. Two people in a booth on Kingsway who had stumbled into something real. Then she nudged her elbow lightly against the table's edge. Okay, she said. Your tragic origin story has structural integrity. High praise. I offer conditional endorsements only. Can I get that in writing? She smiled. What would you do with it? Frame it, I said. Put it in the office, between my lead certificate and my most aggressive change order. She laughed, and this time it warmed the whole booth. Then she looked at her phone, still face down. He's going to keep doing this, she said. Derek, he doesn't want me back. He just doesn't want me to move forward without him knowing about it. I know the type, I said. Do you? I've worked with a few. I leaned back. They're not dangerous so much as expensive. They like to sit in the room. She turned the phone over, read the message, put it face down again. He says he just wants to make sure I'm okay. What he means, I said carefully, is that he wants to make sure he's still relevant. She looked at me. Yeah. She picked up her tea, then put it down, then said, my friend Donna keeps saying I should talk to a lawyer. About the cosign situation, Donna sounds smart. She's relentless, Nina said, but she's usually right. Those qualities correlate. Her mouth tilted. The real smile again, the one with texture. I'd started cataloging which one she was wearing the way you learn which floorboards creak. I'll look into it, she said. Actually look into it. Not just think about looking into it. If you want a recommendation for a real estate lawyer, Owen's cousin handles exactly this kind of thing, I said. I'm not offering to manage it, just saying the name exists if you want it. She studied me. Why do you keep doing that? What? Offering things, and then immediately clarifying you're not trying to take over. I thought about it. Because I spent a long time watching people offer help and mean ownership, I'm trying to be the other kind. She was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and rested her hand over mine briefly, not holding it, just placing it there. Okay, she said. We ordered 2 more teas and the fried taro they brought out in a little bamboo basket. She stole the crispest piece and didn't apologize, which I respected. We talked about actual things after that. Her worst client meeting, my most unreasonable project manager, whether a place can be genuinely multicultural or just good at seeming like it. She had opinions, specific, considered, occasionally wrong but never boring. By the time we left, the October air had gone properly cold, the kind that rolls in off the water in Vancouver and makes you feel like you're being reminded of something. We walked east without a specific destination. Our shoulders were close enough that they touched on every 3rd or 4th step, and by the 4th block, neither of us was moving away. She slipped her hand into mine at a crosswalk, fingers settling between mine like it was a reasonable thing to do. Don't make it a moment, she said. I would never. You absolutely would. True, I said. I'm actively working on that. She laughed and didn't let go. We ended up at a park near Commercial Drive, the small kind that feels like the city built it as an apology for the density. 2 benches, a maple that was halfway through losing its leaves, a water fountain that looked like it had given up on the season. We sat. Her knee touched mine. She didn't move it. I'm glad I didn't leave, she said. Me too. She turned to look at me. Really look. The kind of looking that costs something, where you're not composing your expression. I almost didn't say it, she said. The thing about the price. At the restaurant, I know I had a whole plan. Order the cheapest thing. Eat half. Pretend I wasn't hungry later. Classic survival strategy, I said. It works, she said, until you realize you've been surviving your own evenings for 2 years. I looked at her. He made me feel small about money, she said. Not angry, just stating it. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just continuously. Quietly. Like water. I'm sorry. I didn't want to say anything tonight because I thought it would happen again. She looked at the maple. I thought you'd do the thing where you say it's fine and then recalibrate. For what it's worth, I said. I'm not recalibrating. She turned back to me, and the distance between us, already not much, reduced a little further. Can I ask you something personal? She said. You've told me about your dad's coupon folder, I said. I think we're there. She smiled. Are you always this forthcoming on first dates? I don't go on many first dates, I said. Owen usually manages my social calendar with an iron hand. He manages mine too, apparently. She tilted her head. Do you think he told you things about me? Real things, not surface things. I thought about it. He told me you were funny, that you were kind, that you had this look like you'd heard everything, and were still curious anyway. She was quiet. I think he knew, I said. I think Owen set this up because he saw something that fit. And you think he was right? I looked at her. The park light caught the silver of her earrings. I haven't eaten in a restaurant for 4 hours without eating anything, and still had this good a time. That is one way to frame it, she said. The honest way, I said. She looked down. Then she looked back up and leaned forward slightly. Unhurried, giving me time, I leaned in. And she kissed me, quiet and certain, her hand coming up to the side of my jaw like she'd thought about the placement. I kissed her back. The maple dropped a leaf behind her. The fountain ran. A dog barked somewhere on the drive. When she pulled back, she stayed close. Her eyes moved across my face like she was reading a final line. That was a terrible first date, she said softly. Historically, statistically, I'd do it again. Tomorrow? I said. She looked at me. Then she laughed, quiet and warm. You're very confident for someone with broth on their sleeve. I contain multitudes. Then her phone buzzed. She looked at it, handed it to me without speaking. Derek again. A photo. Us at the park bench. Below? Cute. Does she tell all her dates about the cosign or just the ones Owen sets up? I read it twice, then handed the phone back. He's been watching, she said. Flat, or someone told him. She locked the phone. Her hand was steady. How does he know about Owen? Mutual friends, I said. You said. She stood up, not fleeing, deciding. There's a difference and I'd learn to spot it. I'm going to call a lawyer tomorrow, she said. Donna's been right about this for months. Good. And I'm going to talk to Owen. Because Derek keeps surfacing at the edges of things and someone is feeding the current, also good. She looked at me. And I'd like to not let him end this evening. Then don't. She reached for my hand again. Her grip was different this time, less tentative. More decided. We walked back to commercial, slower than necessary, and stopped at a bakery that was still lit up but technically closed, its window full of Portuguese custard tarts and lemon squares. She stood and looked at them for a full 30 seconds. I love lemon, she said. Noted, I said. That sounded ominous. I prefer the word deliberate. She leaned into my shoulder briefly, then straightened. He's going to keep showing up, she said. Not literally, digitally, in the margins. What do you want to do about it? She looked at me sideways. You keep asking that. It keeps being your call. Her expression did something complicated and then settled into something softer. I want to stop flinching every time my phone lights up, she said. I want to go somewhere and not wonder if he's adjacent to it. I want to eat dinner without doing the math on whether honesty is going to cost me. She stopped. The custard tarts glowed orange behind the glass. That's a lot to want, she said. Those are reasonable things, I said. She turned to look at me properly. And then, under the awning, in the light rain that had started while we weren't paying attention, she stood on her toes and kissed me again. Her hand pressed against my chest, flat over my sternum, like she was checking for something. I put my arm around her waist. When she pulled back, her forehead was near mine, and her eyes were closed briefly. I want a second date, she said. Good. With lemon squares, I'll find the best ones in the lower mainland, and no Derek. I can't promise that, I said, but I can promise I won't make it worse. She opened her eyes. That's a surprisingly effective thing to say. I work with risk management, I said. I know how to set an expectation. She laughed and pulled back, and we walked to her building, a low-rise off commercial, the kind with thick walls and old hardwood that you have to love because the city isn't making more of them. And she paused at the entrance. I had a good time, she said. Somehow, that's the subtitle of my memoir. She squeezed my hand. Thank you for not making me feel small. I wanted to say something better than what I said. But what I said was the true thing. You weren't small in any of it, I told her. Not once. She looked at me for a moment. Then she went inside. I walked back to my car. The rain had gotten serious. I didn't mind. My phone buzzed. Owen, how's it going? I texted back. We left the restaurant, 3 dots. Then that good or bad? Good, I wrote. Very good. Call you tomorrow. I sat in my car for a minute. The light in Nina's window came on. 3rd floor, left of center. A small square of warm against the wet dark. I thought about her dad's coupon folder, color-coded, her mother sick, and the time she'd taken off. The way she'd said continuously, quietly, like water. The way she'd handed me the phone without asking me to fix it. I thought about Owen, setting this up. I made a note to ask him later whether there was anything he knew about Derek and the mutual friend situation. Not to manage it, just to know whether someone was passing information in a direction it shouldn't go. But that was for later. For now, I drove home through rain-slicked streets with the radio on low and the mountains invisible in the cloud, the way they always are this time of year, patient and enormous and still there. 3 months later, Nina sat across from me at a kitchen table, my kitchen table, eating dumplings we'd made from scratch, badly and with excessive confidence, and she said, out of nowhere, "Do you ever think about that first date?" "Regularly," I said. "What part?" "The part where you handed me the menu price and waited to see what I'd do with it." She tilted her head. "I didn't hand you anything. I just said it." "I know," I said. "That was the part." She reached across the table and took a dumpling off my plate, which by now was established as her tax, and she said, "The lawyer sorted the cosign last month. Derek has no claim, no grounds, and was sent a very polite letter that apparently made him feel extremely uncool." "How do you know it made him feel uncool?" "Because Donna told me he called it aggressive," she said, "which means it worked." I smiled. She pointed her chopstick at me. "You never stormed in. I never stormed in. You offered things and clarified you weren't taking over, repeatedly." "It was," she said, winding a noodle around her chopstick, "incredibly annoying and also exactly right." I watched her. The kitchen light was on. The radio was playing something instrumental from a station she'd found on her phone and then forgotten to change. Her earrings tonight were the small crescents again, the silver ones from the first night. "I'm glad you said it," I said. "At the restaurant." She looked up. "That I couldn't afford it?" "Yeah." She was quiet for a moment. "I almost didn't." "I know. I had a whole backup plan. Order the mushroom risotto. Eat slowly. Pretend the portions were generous. Would have been a very different evening. Would have been a very different everything," she said. She set her chopsticks down and looked at me with the particular quality of attention that I'd learned to recognize over 3 months. Not performing, not composing, just looking. "It cost me something to say it," she said. "At the time. I know that. And it turned into the best thing I've said on a first date." I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. The dumplings were getting cold. Neither of us moved. "The best things usually do," I said. "Cost something first." She turned her hand over and held mine properly. Outside, Vancouver was doing what Vancouver does in January. Rain, patience, the mountains, hiding and still there. Inside, she stole my last dumpling and called it structural balance. I let her.